So for anyone who doesn't know, in the next couple of weeks, I'm officially going to be saying goodbye to my 20s as I enter a new decade of life, only this time with that 3 right in front of it. I'm officially turning 30, guys. Wow. Now, it feels kind of weird to say and honestly not real in a way, but I've been making content since I was 23 years old, which is mind-blowing. Basically what that means is that you guys have seen my growth over time, which is actually pretty cool. Over the years, I've gone from being a new grad that was barely cracking $50,000 a year working at a Big 4 firm, to eventually seeing me get promoted at my job, all while juggling YouTube as our side hustle, to seeing us go all in on content, and then eventually building a business that not only makes money, but also has impact and purpose. You guys have also seen me go from having $50,000 in student loan debt to eventually being able to pay that off. And you guys have seen me go from having a negative net worth to a $0 net worth to now having over $150,000 across all of my accounts, all before the age of 30. You know, we have to do a slow clap here because damn, it has not been easy to stay this focused and this consistent over time. Now, even though I've been able to accomplish all of these things within less than a decade, you have to know that these milestones haven't come without some lessons along the way, as well as some bumps and bruises. So today we're gonna break down the biggest money lessons that I've learned in my 20s that I think can help you financially, whether you're in your 20s, younger, or even older than that. Now, to kick things off, the first thing that I wanna answer is the question of whether or not money buys happiness. So real quick, before you even hear what I'm about to say, let us know in the comments if you believe that money buys happiness. Drop your answer below. Okay, so before you guys do that, I'm jumping in here because I want to let you guys know that we're hosting a live kickoff call for anyone who joins our course, Simple Investing for Canadians, before September 15th. We're going to be doing a full intro to the course and how it works, a live Q&A session where Steph and I are going to answer any of your questions and we can chat back and forth, and a goal setting session where you'll set a goal and an intention for where you want to be once you're done the course. Now's the best time to be working on your goals, and this is going to be a really great opportunity to help you do that. You have until September 15th if you want to be included in the kickoff call. So sign up at the link on screen or in the description box below, and we'll see you live on September 15th. Now, this is a question that I thought that I had the answer to basically ever since I could remember. At whichever point that I was old enough to fully acknowledge what money was and what it gave you, so we're talking toys if we go way, way back, or in general, not having to worry about anything that had a price tag on it, I was 100% under the impression that money 100% bought you happiness. See, for me growing up, and I'm sure that some of you can relate to this, you know when you don't have money and it sucks. And even if you can't relate to that, it's usually pretty clear when other people have more money than you because they can do things that you simply can't. So does money buy happiness? Kind of, but it's not what you think. Now, first and foremost, I'm not speaking from the perspective of someone who's got millions of dollars tucked away. Not that that would change anything. But I am speaking as someone who has my basic needs being met, and I'm able to do things above and beyond that. So for example, that includes traveling, and I'm also able to do things like helping my family out here and there. I can say without hesitation that having money isn't everything, but not having it is. And I feel like this is one of those things that truly transcends classes within society, because there are things that money simply just can't change or fix. And if you know what I'm talking about, these are usually the things that you wish you could spend money on. Think about it this way. Money can't truly change your relationship with your family and friends. It can't make you healthy overnight. It can't take away your sickness. It can't take away your addiction. It can't bring back a loved one, and so much more. Yes, it can give you a roof over your head. Yes, it can make your life easier day to day. Yes, it can give you that car or bag that you really want. And yes, it can soothe certain aspects of your life. I mean, it can even give you hope in the form of access, but there are certain things in life where no matter how much money you throw at them, money just won't be the answer. Now, I'm not going to be disingenuous here because I know that money is important, and regardless of what anyone else tells you, yes, you absolutely need it. There's no question there. But I also think that there's definitely a certain level that you can hit, and there's been studies done on this where you eventually start to see diminishing returns. Meaning that no matter how much money you earn above that point, if you're already able to do the things that you always wanted to do, like helping out your family and giving them that sense of security, anything above that point is just extra and probably won't move the needle on your true happiness. With that being said, I'm sure that there's a lot of us, including everyone who tunes into our content, who wants to know how to get to that point to begin with, or at least get on a pathway to getting there. Well, we'll definitely talk about that in another lesson in a few minutes. Now, one of the biggest lessons that I think changed the trajectory of my life, and one that's underrated because you hear it being talked about so much, is 100% tracking your spending, aka budgeting. We've probably said this countless times, but budgeting does not have to be a formal process or something that you're forcing yourself to do. The essence of budgeting is actually really, really simple. It's just knowing where your money is going. I think that this is one of the biggest mental shifts for the vast majority of people because we're often so conditioned to not look into the details and just go about our day's business as usual. Then when we go to do something that should be simple, like checking your bank transactions for the month or checking your credit card statement for the month, we get bad vibes and avoid it completely. I actually once had a family member ask me how long I planned to budget for, to which my response or my answer was, forever. And I also had a friend tell me that their goal in life was to make so much money that they didn't have to check their accounts. What do you mean you're not gonna check your accounts? Those two statements were so interesting to me because damn, you mean to tell me that we're so afraid to hold ourselves accountable, or at the very least live out our reality, that we're willing to not look or have someone else control or be in charge of our money? You know, when I think back to when some of my family and friends were super stressed out in their lives, it was the times where they were avoiding the calls from the creditors, not wanting to pull or look at their credit report because they didn't know what was gonna be on it, basically just being afraid of the unknown. For me, tracking my spending has allowed me to level up in just so many ways. I've been able to make some realistic goals around my spending. I've been able to save and invest exactly what makes sense to me, and I'm rarely ever surprised when it comes to my spending. To me, in order to run a household, you have to have the ability to see. And in order to see, you have to track your spending, ideally with some sort of budget template. Now, once you get to a point where you know where your money is going, the next big money lesson is hands down paying off your debt. We've become so accustomed to carrying debt that we don't even realize that it's the one thing that's actually crippling us and not allowing us to move forward with our lives. And what's unfortunate is that we now have the ability to take on debt in almost pretty much all areas of our lives. If we start with school, many of us, including myself, take on loans without even really knowing what a loan even is. When it comes to credit cards, buy now, pay later, and even cars, we're racking up tons of car and consumer debt just buying stuff. And then we're getting to a point where we have these payments that we're having to make each and every single month that we can never get ahead of. See, for me, I started my 20s with $50,000 in student loans. And the reason that I paid them off as quickly as I could and as aggressively as I could was because I wanted to get started with my life. When you have bad debt, it's actually really hard to make substantial gains in your efforts to create a better life for yourself. And no matter how much paper math that you do, and I think student loans could be an exception to this one, it won't change the fact that humans are humans, which means that our ability to execute and learn something often takes time. For example, we'll often have people telling us that they have $10,000+ in credit card debt, but they don't want to clear it because their money is currently being invested in the stock market. If you compare how much you'll earn in the stock market versus how much you're paying in interest, those numbers likely aren't in your favor. But even then, that's the financial side. I would actually go a little bit further and say that if you have bad debt, I don't believe that you have the ability to truly enjoy your life. And that's because at the back of your mind, you're thinking about payments and the money that you owe. Now, another lesson that might surprise you, especially given the fact that we're talking about money lessons, is to take risks. Now, I don't mean taking risks in the stock market. In fact, take less risks in the stock market. If you know, you know. What I really mean by this is taking risks by betting on yourself. I know I teased this a little bit earlier when we were discussing whether or not money buys happiness, but in order for you to get ahead financially, you have to be willing to do things that other people are simply not willing to do. I think we've all heard the phrase, you never know. But sometimes you do know, and it just takes that initial leap of faith. For example, when me and Steph were thinking about what we wanted to do with our lives, we always knew that we wanted to build something that was bigger than ourselves and ideally build something that gave us purpose. We were going to be successful in the traditional career sense because we had basically made it our focus at one point in time. We both upskilled ourselves in a variety of different ways. We made ourselves more attractive in the workforce by going to school, studying programs that had demand, and eventually getting jobs in high-performing work environments. And all of this was us building the foundation to what would have eventually been high earning salaries, even if we weren't making that much in the first place. Now, during this time, we also worked on side hustles that eventually opened up new avenues to earn more income, which is something that you're seeing a lot more people do today. And this isn't to say that everyone should quit their jobs and start a business. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that regardless of the path that you're on, you can create financial success if you make the effort. But a standard path will get you standard results. If you're someone who's always wanted more out of your life, or more than what's been presented to you, or more than what you currently have access to, now is the time to take action. Building a career is of course very important for financial success, especially for the average person. And if you're on that path, keep going. But if you want more, don't be afraid to go for it. Because at the end of the day, with the more money that you have access to, then the more doors open up for you. This actually leads us into our next lesson, which to me is one of the initial keys to success. And I mean like true success. At a certain point, if you're someone who budgets, aka you know where your money's going, you will eventually come to the realization that no matter how much you cut back on your expenses in order to hit your goals, it won't matter because you have what's called an income problem, meaning you need to earn more money. This one to me is like a simple concept, yet it's so hard for people to accomplish. Now, the reason that this is a difficult puzzle for people to solve is because you only have so many working hours within a day. And because of that, if you work a regular job, you're capped at how much you can earn hourly. Now, if you can flip the script and find a job that pays you for your value as opposed to your time, or even a job that has a higher hourly rate, then we're in business and can actually make some of the moves that are going to free us financially. For some people, this might mean going back to school to upskill yourself, and for other people, it might mean getting another job. We've actually seen this becoming more and more of a trend where you'll have people who are making $60,000 or $70,000 salary and working a second job that bumps up their income and allows them to pour the majority of that extra income into investments. Another important lesson, if not the most important lesson, is to invest your money. Remember, compound interest is a real thing, and the only way to make sure that it's working in your favor is for you to be investing as early as possible and as much as possible, with more focus on the time as opposed to the amount of money. This is something that I actually think about all the time when I'm running the numbers on how much money I'll have in the future from my monthly investment contributions. Listen, I'm not worried about my monthly contributions because they're on autopilot. And given that, we have to stop waiting for these big windfalls or lottery type situations to happen. I once had a friend tell me that they don't need to pay off their debt or invest any of their money because they're gonna be so rich one day that they'll just pay it all off in one go and won't even need investments in the same way. Obviously, the math isn't in their favor because of interest, but from a mindset perspective, we have to make a shift here. What's also interesting is that it's never too late to start. And we'll get people of all ages. So people in their 20s who wish they'd started earlier, people in their 30s who wish they'd started earlier, people in their 50s and 60s who wish they'd started earlier. And you know what? You have to stop thinking about the coulda, woulda, shoulda, because you didn't. But you know what you can do? Start today. For example, if we take a look at our retirement calculator, if I were to invest $2,000 a month, assuming I'm starting from zero, for the next 30 years, at which point I'll be 60 years old, I should have somewhere around $2.8 million in investments. Now, had I started 5 years earlier, literally just 5 years, without changing anything else, so still investing $2,000 a month for 30 years, I would have $4.3 million in investments. What this shows you is that time really is a difference maker. And of course, not everyone starts off investing that much, but you can get yourself to a point after conquering some of those other money lessons where over time, you're increasing your regular monthly contributions. Now, one of the biggest things that I want to highlight here is that you cannot fall for the narrative of, I could die any day, or listen to people that are saying things like, you know, why would I want to wait until I'm 60 or 65 to have money? And do you know why? Well, because although anything can happen tomorrow, statistically, you will live past the age of 80 years old simply based on modern medicine and overall life expectancy. And I feel like this specific comment just says it all to me. You know who wants money in their 60s? 60-year-olds, especially ones who have to continue to work each and every single day in order to keep up their daily lives. Now, to cap off these money lessons, here are some lessons that I think are important, but I won't dive too deep into them. So here we have staying away from mutual funds. And yes, technically it's still better than not investing, but you are losing a lot of money on just unnecessary fees. And the same goes for financial advisors. Just because your family has used a particular person or a particular company for just years and years and years, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's what's best for you. I'm of the belief that each generation should look at what was done in the past and ask themselves if what's being done makes sense to continue to do moving forward, or could it be improved for the future? Another lesson is to talk to literally everyone that you know about money. Break those generational curses, learn from each other's experiences, talk about how much money you make, break those social taboo constructs that also exist literally just to benefit people that already have money, and more importantly, talk about money in your relationships. You and your partner will avoid a ton of headaches in the future if you talk about not just the technical side, so how much money you make, your debts, and how you actually go about spending your money, but also the emotional side. So asking each other how you grew up with money, what your parents taught you or didn't teach you about money, and actually reflecting on how that shaped the person that you are today and what you believe in. Also, don't buy a house or a car to please others. I've seen tons of friends finance cars that they can't afford. I've seen friends buy houses before they really think about the overall cost of ownership. So we're talking maintenance, property taxes, insurance. And on top of that, how a house can change your lifestyle and your overall flexibility. Anyways, we hope that you guys enjoyed these money lessons. And if you have any money lessons of your own that you want to drop in the comments, make sure you drop them. And if there's a particular money lesson that resonated with you, make sure you let us know as well. With that, make sure you sign up for Simple Investing for Canadians. You have until September 15th, so make sure you check it out. It'll be in the description box below, and we'll see you next week with another video.